Hello everybody, welcome back to the channel. I'm Fiend Metal, and in today's video, well, I'm about to do one of the most underwhelming things possible, I think. And I'm going to dyno not only one, but both of my Impreza race cars. Alright, so yeah, that is probably one of the most underwhelming things I could possibly try to do right now. But like I said in the last video, I found a shop that's going to do dyno runs, well, really 3 baseline dyno runs for a relatively good price. $130 per car for 3 runs. Now, compared to other shops, one other shop was $225 per car for 3 runs. That total price ended up being $450 for the expensive one and $260 for the less expensive one. Obviously, for $190 price difference, well, I'm going to go ahead and go with the cheaper one since it's the same kind of dyno, all-wheel drive dyno. Nothing's wrong. And my buddy just actually had his car dynoed on that exact dyno, so I know it's working. I know the numbers are accurate. That's pretty much all I need. Now, what makes this so underwhelming? Well, it's the fact that both of these cars are powered by 1.8 liter Subaru EJ18 engines. And they're both backed by all-wheel drive 4EAT automatic transmissions. Almost identical setups, except one, being the wagon, is modified for off-road racing. Lifted suspension. Right now it's actually on stage rally coilovers. Tube front end, custom header, custom exhaust, all pie cuts made by me, which was really not about, it's a pie cut exhaust system. It was about fitting in the budget theme of the racing series. So I built it all out of scraps and, just did what I could and made do. But the big question is, what does it actually put down to the ground? Now, a lot of people speculate it's going to be in the 70s, 80s. I'm going to be absolutely surprised if it breaks 50. That's just me. I'm expecting numbers even lower than that realistically. That's a possibility because I have the big off-road tires on it. They're heavy. Heavy, bigger diameter tires eat horsepower like crazy. I mean, my buddy switched to stage rally tires and they ate 50 horsepower out of his car to the wheels. Like, he ran on snow tires and then he switched to stage rally tires and there went 50 horsepower. This could be a huge difference. Now, the coupe, that one is bone stock from the air inlet to the exhaust tip. Now, it's got my custom radiator support and it's got an upgraded radiator in it out of a newer WRX. I think it's like an 07, 08 WRX. I forget which year. One of my buddies gave me the radiator because the factory one for the car was leaking and I didn't want to buy a radiator, so free is a good price. But we put the radiator in there. Other than that, the car is just stock. And I'm going to leave it that way until I get this dyno done. And this dyno couldn't have come at a better time, really, because it's time to start doing some big modifications, and I always wanted to know these numbers before I started adding power to either car. So once I can get this baseline set done, well, we'll know the truth, and we'll know exactly what I've been fighting for championships with at Hoopty Cross Racing. So I'm going to try to get a couple of videos of the runs themselves. I'm not really going to film down at the dyno. I just want to kind of get in, get my runs, and get out. But I would love to get some video footage of it. And if I can, you guys will be seeing that right now. And then we'll be back to talk about any result numbers we get in a minute. Alrighty, so we are back from the dyno, and the run you just saw was the coup's first run. Now, overall, I had an absolute blast. I went to Superior Subaru and Import down in Milwaukee, Oregon, and they were able to dyno the cars relatively quickly. I mean, it took them less than an hour to do both cars. That's great. And the results, well, they are very, very surprising. So I do have pictures of the dyno graphs, and I'm going to try to insert them after the run, so you actually saw the run and then the dyno graph for the first pull. I also have one more run of the coupe on video, but I didn't get the third run because my phone battery was going dead. So we're going to step into that run and talk about it in a minute. All right, so yeah, that's the coupe's second run, and also the two dyno graphs afterwards are the coupe's second and third dyno graph. It made 69.2 horsepower on the first one, 69.5 and change on the second one, and then 70.6, 7 or something like that on the third run. And the funny thing about that is that's exactly where I thought it was going to land. I mean, the guy running the dyno walked up to me and said, "How much do you think it's going to make?" I said, "Probably right around 70. 69, 69, 70. Pretty consistent. And also very consistent on the car. Now, we did have one fatal problem on the coupe, and that is it was hemorrhaging oil at high RPMs. I don't know what exactly the cause, but at high RPMs, the oil pressure is going above 80 PSI, and which is great. Now we have oil pressure. I mean, I put the Tribotech stuff in there and it's actually maintaining oil pressure. But I think at 80 PSI, it's probably getting past a couple of seals. And I've been wanting to get this done before I tear apart the engine. Or not tear it apart, but take it out and do a reseal on it and just make sure everything's sealed up. Maybe do a rear main if it's necessary. But now that we've got this done, we can actually worry about that and start looking to make some adjustments to that car, and now we can modify it, so that's going to unlock a whole lot of new content for the channel. But the big massive upset for the week, well, the wagon hit the dyno. All right, so there was its first run. It did great. It came right out of the gate, beating the coupe by 5 horsepower. Solid, right? I was surprised. The dyno operator was surprised. Everybody was pretty surprised. But the wagon has a weird harmonics thing. And in its exhaust system, there's something to where when it gets into the high RPMs, I'm not sure how well the camera picked it up, but it I don't know how to explain. When harmonic frequencies cross over, you get that weird vibration in the air, and you feel it in your chest. Yeah, it was doing that, and he didn't actually rev it all the way out to where the rev limiter kicked. So on the second run, he did it again. Didn't quite rev it all the way out. The car was doing way more speed than I thought it should. Well, here you go. So for the second run, it backed it up with a 78. Definitely picked up some power. but it was weird. It was making more power despite having bigger tires, but let's get to that final run and then we'll do the conclusion. All right, so there you have it. The wagon came out swinging and put the coupe down by over 10 horsepower, 10.1 or something like that. That's a notable power difference. Now, the absolute hilarious part of this is that on the wagon, I can only ever get it to about 80 miles an hour in third gear. That's 4,000 RPMs and more than fast enough to get me a ticket. I don't want to get a ticket, so I never rev it past there. My gut's been saying that, I only ever see, in third gear, I only ever see about 40 horsepower. So that's what I've always said. It only really gets to about 40 horsepower. I can't rev it to $6,000. At $6,000, it's doing over 110 miles an hour. That's just stupid to drive on the street. I'm not going to be the person to do it. I would do it in a race, but, the wagon takes 37 seconds to dyno. I'm not going to be that flat on the floor that long in a race unless I'm going down a massive straightaway. And 80 horsepower isn't going to be doing much. So, it's awesome that it beat it, but the big thing I noticed was that where the power changed. So, on the bottom of the graphs, up to about 4,000 RPMs, the coupe actually appears to be leading. Leading by a good little bit of horsepower, which would make sense since the rotational mass of the big tires. But on the wagon, from about 4,500 to 5,000 RPMs, it picks up 10 horsepower really sharply and then carries it out and carries the torque longer. Now, part of that is probably the freer flowing exhaust header and even the air inlet with the pod filter on it, which I don't say the pod filter is making power. I think just the fact that it's able to get more air, because I have the whole top of the box is open and the front of the box. I didn't dyno it with the snorkel still on it, so that's the one thing I kind of regret, but it is what it is. I ditched the snorkel for off-road racing primarily just because, after it ripped off, I viewed it as a liability in its current state. I think it was a very surprising result, but I think the main key factor in the coupe making less horsepower was the stock exhaust and the stock intake. They choke it down. Like, the coupe's drawing air through a tiny little hole, and then it's exhaling through an exhaust that's less than 2 inches in diameter. That's not a lot of flow. The wagon, on the other hand, is drawing air through through that whole pod filter. I've got the sides cut off the air box now, the top off of it. It has a lot of room to draw as much air as it wants. And then it's got bigger primary tubes heading into a 2 1/4 inch collector. And from that 2 1/4 inch collector, it goes up over the subframe and goes into a 2 1/2 inch exhaust system where it has all the flow it wants to get that exhaust out of that car. I think that alone made the massive difference in allowing the wagon to put the coupe down as far as this little competition goes. Definitely a massive difference. Definitely really cool to see. And now that I've got both of their baselines, which is kind of a shootout between the two cars side by side, but now that I've got both their baselines, we've got a lot of projects coming this summer, from working onto this brat to boosting both cars. The goal is to have both cars boosted by the end of summer. So I got a lot of work to do. I'm assembling my new frame rack in the shop this weekend. We're going to be getting the brat on it, getting that thing started undergoing its process of revitalization. and then we'll be working on a couple of other small projects. Alrighty, so I have no idea what happened, but for some reason the last section of audio recording managed to wipe over the first section. So in the end, the only thing I really had to say was this is an exciting time for the channel, and we're going to be doing a lot of projects, adding boosts to cars, and finally tuning them. So if you guys want to see more, you want to see what's happening next, feel free to like and subscribe, and follow me over on Instagram. Hope to talk to you in the next video, and have a wonderful day.